My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast and it's semi-final week.
Woo!
Woo! Semi-final.
Except it's the second last night of Great British Bake Off for the year and...
Boo.
Yeah. Unless Foxtel are really kind and actually show 2019...
On
Great
time?
British Bake Off.
Well, ahead of time.
2019, yeah.
They can show it ahead of time. That could be good.
Before the Brits get it.
Yeah, look, wouldn't it be nice for us to get something ahead of time? That would be great.
I mean, we are plus 10 or so GMT, so
It makes sense. We should know who wins before they do it.
10 hours before they do it.
Yeah, before they even walk into the tent, we should have the winner.
Yep.
Just putting it out there. Channel 4, if you're listening, we know you do. We know you love us.
Don't sue us.
I don't actually have any proof of that, but I'm running with it. So, patisserie week for the semi-final.
Yeah.
So they picked a nice, difficult week, much like I picked a nice, difficult time to cut to you, just as you yawned.
Yeah.
I'm good like that.
A few of those going on today.
I'm good like that. It was, I don't know, it was a good week. Like, it was genuinely a good week.
It was.
I don't want to say I felt nothing for it, because I didn't. I felt something for it, but it was about halfway through when I suddenly went, oh yeah, that's right, it's a semi-final. Yeah,
I think the quality of the bakes that were chosen were good. I think that the time constraints were a little too tight, like maybe an extra half an hour for the madeleines, an extra half hour for the technical, even an extra hour for, like, I know it was already a 5-hour challenge, but for the just to get that stand up.
Well, there were shortcuts for everything. Like the madeleines, I had a problem with the fact that they kept on having a go at them about the shortcut on the madeleines, which was everyone was using baking powder. We'll get into it in more detail in a minute.
Because they needed their humps.
Their humps. Their lovely lady lumps. Check it out. But everyone was using baking powder, and then Paul's telling them off for using baking powder. Meanwhile, if you look at the time constraints, it makes perfect sense why they use baking. Why are you using baking powder to get that hump? Well, Paul, you haven't given us long enough to do the challenge properly. Anyway, let's begin with the
beguine.
Begin with the beguine. And the beguine begins with last week there was a lovely joke, a Danish joke for Sandy.
Was it? Oh, that's right.
So this week they started with a French joke for Noel because...
he's half French.
Sure, why not?
But which half? I presume it's the side that didn't have the beret or moustache.
No, I like the idea that it actually was that side.
With the beret and moustache.
No, the other side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the side with the beret and moustache is actually having a go at the stereotype on the other side. It's actually a deep, biting satire on the nature of these sort of predictions and the fact that they one day will consume us all.
I like to think that side's also quoting Allo Allo and asking if you've started your Allo Allo collection.
Good morning. There is a pissy in the trough. Want to take a leak? Actually, it does just sound like...
they're drooping.
It does just sound like Noel Fielding stand-up.
Yes, it does.
So, couple of things we had in this episode non-stop. First of all was the mention of the words semi-final. Semi-final. Yes. It's a semi-final. We're all the semi-final. We're at the semi-final. It's a semi-final. You want a semi-final? I want a semi-final.
It was bordering on a little bit of MasterChef. I mean, I reckon it's the invasion of the dough molds earlier in the year, the spheres.
Oh, yeah. Well, the spheres did invade there. Look, I always thought...
and now we're getting into a bit of the hype.
I always thought the spheres were the perfect landing craft for any alien life form, and I think we've seen that tonight.
And if we did see in the ad breaks, Gary Meehan, dude...
doesn't really matter because he's doing Weight Watchers commercials. So, can I just point out, if you've been following MasterChef Twitter, Australian MasterChef Twitter, and, you know, why should you really? But what's been great to see is Gary and George have been out there, like, showing all these CrossFit trainers and all these personal trainers. And good on Matt Preston is just showing us really fucking good food.
Well, it really does show where George and Gary's headspace are.
And it really also does show us who our favourite judge is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
Nigella fucking Lawson.
100%, followed by Gordon fucking Ramsay. Anyway, so before we really...
followed by Ella Wolf Tasker.
Before we really get into this...
Ella
fucking Wolf Tasker, yeah. So before we get into
Not
this...
fucking wolves.
Not fucking wolves, no, that'd be wrong.
Ella
Wolf fucking Tasker.
Do you reckon that was the porn version, though, of, like, Dances with Wolves, fucking with wolves?
Probably. You know, right up there with Shaving Ryan's Privates. And you ain't my doodle, it's a dandy. Anyway, so moving on, before we get into the actual episode ourselves, the drinking game.
Yes.
We quite often, we like running through what got hit. Now, not a lot
No.
Actually got hit. A baker was inspired by a holiday.
No mention.
That didn't happen.
Yet I'm sure someone would have gone, I'm usually inspired by these flavours from a pie I ate in Portugal.
And that's why the Madeleine is filled with beef. Outdoor shot of wildlife, we did get that. Yep. Prue and Paul disagree about quality of a bake.
They disagreed about flavour.
I'm going to go with that because it's quality, so the flavouring, I'm giving it.
Yeah, true, because Prue said, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and Paul's like, no, I don't like it. I don't like it.
It's a bit basic.
Yes.
You're basic.
A Hollywood handshake didn't happen, and to be honest with you, no one really deserved one. I actually think that the reason why Paul's been so tough the last couple of weeks, we talked about this last week, is that there was a bit of a perception, I think, out there that they were a bit generous early on.
Yeah.
Now, I don't necessarily think they were generous early on, but I think that they've definitely gone out of their way to point out the fact that it's now serious end of the competition.
Yeah. But Paul's also gotten a bit cranky over the past couple of weeks.
I mean, to be fair, they baked some shit.
Yeah.
And like what he was telling people off for when we get to the showstopper, it's something that's a known thing with Paul Hollywood, so, like, don't show up in the semi-final and do it.
But also, I think he's a bit pissed off with his tanning assistant.
Well, you reckon they left him in there too long?
Just maybe one shade too many.
Hey, terracotta is a lovely colour.
I was waiting for someone to just come in and just...
Bigly huge?
Yeah.
Bigly huge. Matcha and yuzu? No, we didn't have any matcha and yuzu, and you know what, I was thankful. Sandy comforts a baker. Now, originally when I wrote this, I wrote Noel comforts a baker and went, no, it's more likely to be Sandy. It was Noel. It was mostly Noel. Sandy did, so it's a hit. Yeah. But if you'd done Noel, you would have been drunk by about halfway through the technical. And we'll come back to that because Noel did a stellar job tonight.
Yes.
Booze in a bake.
Well, Bryony hit that twice.
Bryony hit that beautifully. Showstopper was described as the toughest ever.
It kind of was.
I'll give that. The baker says that a family member inspired them to the final.
No.
They tried that a few times.
Yeah.
They really amped up, they amped up the pressure, not just saying semi-final, but talking about what would it mean to get to the final and more than normal. Channel 4 must be desperate.
Yeah, just trying to... or maybe it's kind of like an editor's choice. Like, these questions must be asked in the tent, but it really is a decision about how much of this you're going to share, I guess. Probably.
Ask them a million questions about making it, and then we'll pick one or two.
Yes.
So, when they had to make Madeleines, which was their first challenge, and again, we've done this before. I'm not going to drag out all the old Madeleine jokes, about the lovely girl going across about her day and going about her business in
becoming
Paris.
The Secretary of State. Or was that...
No, that's Madeleine Albright. You're right.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I do like the idea that the cartoon...
Or steam coming out the side. My face.
That's Madeleine Kahn.
Oh, okay.
That's Madeleine Kahn. Heaving breath. I do like the idea, though, that little girl Madeleine did grow up to become Madeleine Albright, Secretary of State.
Yes.
That would be cool. And Madeleine Kahn.
And Madeleine Kahn. Like, that's her, hobby.
She stopped off on the way through to do the movie Clue and then went on to be Secretary. Well, that's great. So Paul then set about explaining to the world how to make a gorgeous bump.
It was a hump?
He started off, bump for that one.
Bump. All these bumps and humps.
He called it the trademark bump originally, and by the end they were all making hump jokes, which led to a great bit after the judging. So Rahul was talking a lot about that nice little hump, and then Ruby goes, that bulbous hump. And then they're all talking about, we want the hump. The hump's what we're after. The hump's what we're desperate for. And everyone was, and they weren't pretending. No. Everyone was just
totally there,
straight out just saying the word hump and looking at the camera with their eyebrows raised like, eh?
But I like the dual innuendo. Like, it was either about penis or sex. I'm desperate for the hump. It could be for the humping, the sexing, or it could be I'm desperate for the penis. So
that hump's also like the buttocks and the boobs. That's what the song My Hump's about.
Yeah, but okay.
My lovely lady lumps. Check them out.
The humps are just a really ambiguous innuendo. You know what I mean? Like, it's got multiple uses.
And then you get the Red Hot Chili Peppers just singing about Humpty Bump, which I don't even know what the fuck they were on about. And to be honest with you, neither do they. Anthony Kiedis is going, I don't know, sing it. It sounds right.
But then you've got the Humpty. Do the Humpty.
No one wants to do the Humpty Hump. No one wants to do the Humpty dance. I played the Humpty dance for a group of older teenagers the other day, and their reaction was mystified. They're like, is he seriously suggesting that his nose? And I'm like, yeah, he is.
It's a black guy that's so white.
It's so bad. Anyway, we all know the Humpty dance. Let's move on. So we then had the issue of raspberry. Who would have thought that raspberry would become a central
controversial
thing? Now, interestingly enough...
Watch out, maths. We've got raspberries here on Bake Off.
Who cares about people cheating on partners of people they married through in 2.5 minutes
fucking
ago?
hiring actors to...
Yep, although the amazing cakes made by Moorish cakes. So that's the highlight of that show is Moorish cakes.
The only authentic talent on that whole fucking show
is
Monica's cakes.
Making the cakes.
Yes.
But forget all of that. We've got raspberry and a Madeleine. Mm-hmm. And what a controversy. So much so that, as Gabby pointed out on Twitter...
Yes.
Did we ever resolve it? We sort of did. So, Ruby says she's making raspberry and lemon ones, and Paul says, are you freezing the raspberry? Now, we all know what happens when Paul Hollywood stands at your bench and asks you questions. Ruby's response was, no. 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 And at that point...
Existential crisis.
Existence failed. Again, her hand disappeared. The enchantment under the sea dance is a thing of the past.
Computer says no.
Yeah.
Warning. Danger will rise.
And then she went back to what she was doing, and Noel walks past and goes, you know, it's all good. You know what you're doing. And Ruby looks at him and goes, do I though? I swear, regardless of what happens in the grand final... If those two don't have their own television show by the middle of this year, someone at Channel 4 has missed the boat.
Or at least a podcast.
No, what I want to see, I want a cooking show.
A YouTube video.
Well, that too. But what I really want to see is that Noel was talking later on, joking around about, I've learnt so much about baking. What I would love to see is a show, as I said, where Noel does the baking, and the only way that Noel knows what to do is that Ruby has to step by step from another room
describe
the bake.
Maybe a partition. So they're at the same bench, but there's a partition, and Ruby does it and explains what she's doing, and Noel's got to follow along.
And then you've got to see what the two cakes look like. That's Channel 4. You're welcome to the idea. 10% royalties.
Or and then do it the vice versa. So Noel's describing it.
Oh shit. Okay, so. The decoration is kind of like, you know, the sort of look a bunny gets on his face when he's just worked out how to do long division. Just like that, right?
Cross with Margaret Thatcher's underwear.
Yeah, so mix those two together. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful.
Ruby does it, and there's a rip in space and time.
If she ever actually gets it right, the universe just collapses
in on itself.
Upon itself into a vortex.
And Noel goes, that's exactly what I was going for. Top marks.
Now, Rahul is then explaining his hump on the thing to Paul. And I know. And he's like, my hump on this and my hump on that, and then the hump, and we want the hump, and we want the hump. And Paul turns around and goes, I'm getting the hump right now. And Rahul looks at him and goes,
I don't get this hump thing.
What? And then they go, never mind, and just walk away. And Rahul's like... And at the end of the whole thing, they finish all of these hump innuendos. They finish the joke and they cut to Rahul and he goes, can I ask you a question? Why are they all laughing every time they say hump? It's like you can see, but Hollywood, you could actually see, he wasn't just saying, I've got the hump a bit. He was throwing a bit of a tantrum. Because Rahul was taking forever to describe it all again. And he's just like, dude, not again. I worry a little bit that what people saw early on from Rahul, and I said this the other week, as being quaint, is by week 9 probably really fucking annoying.
Yeah, it's like I was listening to the Good Place podcast. Now, if you watch the Good Place, you want to listen to the Good Place podcast. It's hosted by the guy who plays Sean, the judge. Who also plays Kevin on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and it's Mark something, and I can't remember his last names. Anyway, he hosts it, and the recent one I listened to was, I can't remember names, fuck it, the actor who plays Cheaty, who also has a similar thing about being indecisive, and he's gone, because of the show, I've come to understand how frustrating being indecisive is, so I'm trying to be more decisive in my life.
It's a good aim to have.
So maybe Rahul will pick that up in this.
I don't think so. I really don't think Rahul's going to pick that up somehow.
No.
So, Bryony...
Some of us see the Rahul half full, some of us see the Rahul half empty.
Some of us just see Rahul having an existential crisis every time he moves. So, Bryony went, as we said, really boozy with her bake.
Yep.
And this brought about my favourite reaction in the entirety of this show. When Bryony turns around and goes, well, both of my bakes are cocktails. And Sandy got this broad grin on her face and went, I like that about you.
Yes.
Some of the interplay tonight was really good. I thought the hosts did a really good job. I think some people might have seen them as interfering too much. I didn't see them as interfering at all. I saw them working really hard to keep the room light.
And the thing is, like, I'm noticing, like, I know it's because you've got more time because there's only 4 bakers in there, in the shed or tent. But I'm sure in previous seasons we've seen more of that.
Yep. It hasn't happened really until the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's almost like as the judges became more hard-ass, they felt the need to balance it up by more of the light-hearted hosts.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it feels like it's an inverse relationship between the judges going from everybody's wonderful to right now we're actually going to judge you properly, and the hosts going from a background to a foreground, we've really got to do our work here.
Well, you really need the judges to be soft in the beginning because otherwise you get the bake-off professionals. Yeah, Cherie just hates everything.
I was about to say, I think that Benoit and Cherie, I think that there is, and Cherish, Benoit and Cherish, I actually think that there's a bit of a lesson that might have been learned in Bake Off the Professionals, which is that the hosts have to be able to keep it that light, keep it that light feeling. Otherwise, it just becomes bad. And Bake Off the Professionals, right? They're judging them harshly, and they judged them fairly hard on this too in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But Liam and Tom don't have that ability to make it really lighthearted. Liam's a good host.
Really good host and really likeable, but it's just...
It doesn't work.
It doesn't quite... They don't... I don't think they have the opportunities.
No, whereas Noel and Sandy can just cut through everything. And I actually think it's again, we've talked about... We love Mel and Sue, obviously, but Noel and Sandy are a great pair.
Plus, I think if you also think of the dynamics, like in Bake Off the Professionals, you've got, like, some baking fucking legends. So Liam's going to be friggin', like, starstruck because he'll be like, that's such and such for blah, blah, blah.
Whereas Noel and Sandy have...
They're like... I've met the Queen.
Sandy Togsvig is like, I have been around forever. I have been on everything. I replaced a national treasure on QI. Fuck with me if you want.
Yeah, exactly.
And Noel Fielding sees panthers out of the back of people's heads.
Yes.
So he doesn't care.
No.
So what I also love, again, part of that interplay, Noel walks past Ruby at one point and they're talking about the how you're going and making the grand final and how you're going to go. And Noel looks at Ruby and goes, let's be honest, I didn't think you were going to get past week 2. And Ruby's like, fair enough. Now, in terms of the Madeleines, Kim Joy.
Yeah. Buddies.
We called there had to be an animal somewhere.
Yes, and it will correct.
But they're not just cute like everybody supposes.
They're pregnant as well because they are rabbits.
They were quite plump.
Yes, they were definitely about, I think, second trimester.
Yeah, I think what I really liked was they had to make the batch of Madeleines, but if you really left Kim Joy's for about another couple of hours, the number of batches you could have had in the tent, amazing. You could have filled up the tent.
No, you know what there is now? A couple of them escaped onto the estate. And there are these
Madeline bunnies.
Madeline bunnies. Next season, we're going to be seeing they're going to be like tribbles just falling from the ceiling. They're going to be Madeline opening the warming the proving drawers. Just Madeline bunnies tumbling out.
The only solution is to overbake them.
Yes,
it's the only way to kill them. Right, you can't kill them any other way but overbaking. Now, Noel, at this point, they suddenly cut to Noel outside, and I'm like, what is Noel doing outside? The answer, with a sieve, was playing badminton with a gorilla.
Why not? Was it a gorilla or was it the werewolf that was chasing him?
It was a gorilla.
Oh, it was a gorilla.
It was a gorilla. Oh. This time it was a gorilla. Like, the werewolf is off somewhere probably chasing Madeline bunnies.
Aroo, werewolf and Madeline bunnies.
Oh. Now, Ruby was worried because she used a different flour to everyone else. So her consistency was a bit different. It was true. Everyone else was piping the madeleines into the bag. Mm-hmm. And there's Ruby, like, scooping this mush into it and then dropping, like, a raspberry into the middle of it and going, oh, well, that's my madeleines. And then Paul decided to warn everybody about the impact of baking powder. Middle of the challenge.
You know, and the baking powder's already been added. But before tonight, like before we got watching the episode, you said to me, who do you reckon's going home?
Yep.
And my honest answer was, I can't tell. It will depend on who has a shit night. Now, at this time, I thought it was Ruby because the editing was all about her going, oh yeah, I really want to make the final, and, you know, I'm, you know, resilient because I'm a marathon person and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm thinking, oh, they're setting her up for a fall, aren't they? But in my back of my mind, I'm like, well, Kim Joy's really good with the decorating and can usually, like, stumble through a technical, which
literally she did.
Rahul stumbled through the madeleines.
Rahul stumbled through everything.
Yeah, and he...
Except one mille fois.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like... But you can't tell where he's up to because he looks like he's fucking up everything when he's really not. So I'm going, oh, maybe it's Bryony. But then I'm like, if Bryony's on, she'll fucking blitz them all. If she's off, she's going to fail spectacularly. And
as we'll get to in the showstopper, she made one fateful decision. So, and it's a decision that's happened in many series of Bake Off.
I mean, it can happen to anyone. You can talk about Tom Carroll thinking he's a golfer.
Not a surfer.
Not a surfer.
Anyway, enough of your idiot. Oh, no, she's gone again.
I've got to come back.
I've got
to be mindful. I did a course today. I got to nap at work. Well, I got to do yoga nidra at work.
Okay. Did they offer you the chance to either nap or watch television? Was that the offer?
Basically,
was it Kelly
yes.
Kapoor?
It was. We got a pillow and a blankie.
Oh, fuck off. You got a pillow and a blanket at work.
We all got pillows and blankies because we're doing this resilience training, and it was fantastic. And we all got these pillows and blankies to curl up with.
Was the resilience then that you had to make sure that you could sleep through anything while people are banging things around?
And surprise, surprise, I did.
I really loved, by the way, Noel and Sandy, where Sandy does the call out, and then Noel turns around to Sandy and goes, I love watching you work. Powerful. Now,
I'd like a supercut just of all their, like, you know, time calls and interstitials.
Another, again, there were a couple of themes of tonight. As you said, the host being great was a theme of tonight. Rahul being weird was weird tonight. And we combined the two of them. We combined the two of them together.
Yes.
When he was at the bench with Sandy, and Sandy's asking him questions, and he ducks under the bench and is just facing the bench, but talking directly to the bench. And Sandy's like, I'm getting every second word here. And then Rahul talks again to the oven, and Sandy's like, nope, nothing.
Nothing.
Got nothing this time. I feel like we're not communicating. And he's just like talking to the bench and like not really. And then that was where Rahul looked at the oven and went, they've not humped at all. Now, when they pulled them out there.
Unlike Kim Joy's madeleines.
Which are very well.
Humping so much.
Look, kids, let Kim Joy's madeleines be a warning to you of the dangers of humping. So, the raspberries seemed to go badly, which is what Paul predicted. They pulled them out, and they weren't really risen that much, as opposed to, as we said, Kim Joy's, which were huge. And I mean, Kim Joy then pulled them out and turned around and went, not long left, and I've got 12 bunnies to pipe. At which point, Sandy turned around and went, on its own, great sentence. But in the judging, the raspberries seemed to actually help.
Well, they did. They kind of puffed up Rahul's and stopped them from going too humpy, and they were tasty. And his other ones, what was it, the lemon curd, orange curd, this was choc orange, had the perfect hump.
Now, they said that the flavour was very good on the raspberry one, but it was still flat. They said the other one, the lemon, was delicious, however. Yeah. They really liked both of them. And that was when she walked back and your gift that you want appeared.
Yes. When Bryony's like, smile.
And Bryony pulling the corners of her mouth up, going, smile, Rahul, smile. And he like turned around and gave her a half grin and then went back to stony face.
I had this feeling, right? Bridie's got two halves to herself, okay? So the first one's this beautiful, quirky, homely mother that bakes and entertains a beautiful little girl. And the other one is like fucking stage mum. Now, it's not her daughter. She's like in a Big Sisters program. And,
stage mothering
other children. It's like tapper, tapper, tapper. Don't forget to smile.
Little Bridie's ever so pissed. So Ruby gets hers checked, and Paul said that they're a bit of a mess. They almost looked a bit fried and not much hump. They also said that
that's what happens when you get fried. I know. I've been with someone who was perpetually fried
and not much hump.
No.
They also said that it had the texture of an underbaked polenta cake, because that's always what you want to hear. In fact, what you always want to hear is just the phrase polenta cake. I mean, underbaked or what, I don't care.
Some of them are good with the orange syrup and stuff. Yum, yum, pig's bum. Why do people say that?
I've never heard anyone say that, only you.
My mum says it.
Again,
and there's the problem.
Again, we're using your mother as the barometer of sentences and sayings.
Yeah, that's true. Did you know...
Probably.
Okay, so the expression freeze the balls off a brass monkey, which my mum said perpetually.
It's off a brass ball.
No. A brass monkey is a navigational equipment.
Oh, yes, I know that.
It helps tell time at sea. But when you get into really cold water, the brass balls on it literally fall off.
So I'd heard it freeze the balls of a brass ball. And the only reason I went with that one is alliteration.
Right. No, it's brass monkey, because that's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I think, why the fuck would we be saying that? But in my genealogy, like, the first Morris out here in Australia was a seaman.
It does seem kind of appropriate.
Seaman.
Again,
he went
that's
AWOL.
the same thing. It does seem kind of appropriate that we're talking about the first seaman that begat you, it turns out.
Well, he arrived in Australia and he'd been in the Merchant Navy, came back and forth a few times, went AWOL, and then a couple of years later, the next record is his wife moving out to Australia a couple of years later with their 1-year-old child and a few other children, so totally his kid. And then the next thing you see 9 years later is they're both hauled into Goulburn police station at the same time for bigamy. So, yeah, that's the first Morris in Australia.
Seems like a win. Ruby also took that as a win.
Yes.
Not that story, the fact that they said the flavour was good even though everything was underbaked like a polenta. Bryony, they said that Prue Leaf goes, I love your zany icing. And then they tested them. And Paul goes, I'm not getting the lime. And Bryony goes, so just the mint then. To which Paul went, well, I'm not getting that either.
Chris, what are you talking about? What is this?
I don't know.
Is this not the Kristie genealogy podcast?
No, that's later.
Oh!
Second half of the show.
Oh, that's right.
You went early. Went early.
Sorry, guys.
And apparently, though, the coffee one was really good.
Yes.
So, Kim Joy, as Paul said, looks pregnant. They were well iced.
Yep.
There was, however, no flavour to the Madeleine. The flavour in the orange one was better. And then after that, we got Rahul asking, of course, we said, why are people laughing about the hump? You know what people don't laugh at, though, Kristie?
Well, I'm presuming genocide.
Well, they don't laugh at genocide. You're very right.
I'm presuming the state of the Earth's climate.
So the Earth's climate, again, nothing to laugh at. And the third thing they don't laugh at...
What?
Australian Sugarcraft magazine.
No, it is deadly serious.
It is deadly serious and deadly wonderful. It is now the time to subscribe or renew your subscription to Australian Sugarcraft magazine.
And how much is it to renew, Chris?
How much is it to renew? It's free. No, it's not. It's $19.90, and that gets you two editions.
Oh, over the whole year?
Over the whole year. Two
That's
editions.
Fantastic.
It is full colour. There are lots of layouts. There are lots of pictures. There's lots of how-to guides. It's got everything you could ever want related to Sugarcraft, not the Earth's climate or genocide. It doesn't deal with either of those two very serious issues. And obviously here we at the Washing Up support people who, one, are against genocide, and two, believe that climate change is real and should be dealt with.
And, you know, we need to get against climate change, because how the fuck are you supposed to craft sugar?
Exactly. How do you set sugar when the Earth is warming up?
Yes.
Right? And how do you set sugar when people are being wiped wiped out in the back room. You can't do it in either scenario.
No.
Australian Sugarcraft magazine knows this, and they appreciate you.
It's a better hobby than genocide.
Much better hobby. Like, you can eat something in the end of it.
Exactly. Don't burn coal. Just go and get yourself some
brown some sugar.
Yeah, brown some sugar.
Crystallise some sugar. Don't burn coal. Look, I think it's a really good thing for everyone to get involved with. Again, the tutorials are wonderful. The tips, the hints. Maybe again, some of the tips could be use sugar.
Wow, and craft it.
Craft it into a shape.
I know, and as we all know. It's endorsed by Mr. T.
It is endorsed by the Queen. Like, the Queen. Her Majesty came along and talked about that. Mr. T came along and talked about that. We might apparently... I've heard a whisper. There's a special guest lined up for the grand final. Not saying any more. Mum's the word. But not saying any more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So... We've got 2 issues per year at a cost of $19.90 Australian. So make sure you go to facebook.com/Australian Sugarcraft.
That's correct. And you too can be crafting sugar like a pro.
You know what else you need to do like a pro?
Like a professional, not a prostitute.
You know what else? Sex worker.
Sex worker. See, exactly. That's why you can't craft it like a prostitute.
Exactly, because it's a
sex worker.
So, the technical.
Yes.
As they said, one of the longest ones we've ever done.
That's what she said.
That is what she said. The tip from Prue Leaf.
That's what she said.
The tip from Prue Leaf was...
Just the tip?
It's what Prue wrote in her book, probably. Maybe that's the name of a book, The Tip by Prue Leaf. It's a gritty novel about a kitchen hand called Salvador and the woman he loved, at least lusted after. Prue's comment was, "You've all got a freezer. Use it." Well, that sounded good and not at all like Dwight just killed Angela's cat. Anyway, Office fans out there are dying of laughter right there.
They found it.
So, don't you crack me up? All right, torta settavelli.
That 3 times fast.
That 3 times fast. It's a 7-layered cake containing 2 light chocolate Genoese sponges, a hazelnut Bavarois, crunchy praline base, and a chocolate mousse topped with a chocolate mirror glaze.
Yes.
And I can guarantee you 100% that Kim Joy did some of those elements.
But all those elements together looked fucking tasty. It's otherwise known as a 7 veils cake. I was disappointed about one thing, though. Perfect opportunity for Noel and Drag. Doing the dance of the 7 veils. A little bit of, striptease through the...
Perfect opportunity to break out the song that goes along. There's a song that gets sung about the dance of the 7 veils. Is there? It's a comedy song.
But, okay.
Which was sung once by the great Australian singer Ricky May.
God rest his soul.
Spoiler alert, the chick at the end turns out to be Bert Newton. So, it's not our first Bert Newton mention on the podcast. Anyway, now... We talked about professionalism. And Belvedere would be a professional. So would Moira. But we talked about professionalism in the Australian Sugarcraft magazine ad. Paul referred to professionalism here, Paul and Prue, because they turned around and Prue went, "You know what? A professional would struggle with this." So we're giving it to them?
It's like, why the fuck?
Have you seen the Madeleines? Don't do that.
I said they all did a fucking bang-up job.
They did a really good job. For example, their instructions for the praline were simply toast the hazelnuts, make a praline. That was it.
Yeah. And if you noticed, I think it happened to Rahul, but definitely to Bryony, the chocolate buttons were melted in the jar. So they're tipping out these half-melted...
Rahul was commenting on the fact that his melted chocolate wasn't working. The glaze wasn't working like he wanted it to. And Bryony's ended up being darker.
Yeah.
And if you look, both of theirs ended up being darker and ended up being like that latexy sort of rubbery peel off the top of it.
So I'm just wondering if there was a bit of a chemical kind of...
Something went wrong
weird
there.
Kind of crystallization.
But they did end up having a chocolate mirror glaze that seemed to become more like, as they said, like a PVC layer or, as Paul called it, an incontinence pad. It was, to be fair, with the way that some of the mousse was setting or not setting, as the case may be, it did act like an incontinence pad.
It did, but I was more expecting Noel to go out and use it as paint on latex. Come out in a gimp
Come
suit.
back in gimped up in it. So this is where we had Ruby and Sandy and because Ruby's there, she's making everything else. And the praline, a Genovese sponge. Again, if you can't make a Genovese, what the fuck are you doing on the show? You shouldn't be there. So that was easy. The hazelnut, okay, so the praline was good. The mousse, well, we'll come back to the mousse in a minute. But the Bavarois.
Yes.
So Ruby turns around to Sandy and goes, do you know what a Bavarois is? I think I'm the only one who does it. And Sandy's like, but no, Noel and I lead the way on not knowing what a Bavarois is. And then Ruby goes, but you don't have to know. You're not Bavarois people. To which Sandy and her turn around and went, good name for a band, though. Bavarois people.
It's the follow-up to the M people.
The Bavarois people.
They're moving on up and baking on now.
Time to set the cake. Nothing can stop them. I like that.
Except a bad mirror glaze.
Who can make a mousse? Who can make a mousse? Kim Joy can't make a mousse, can't make a mousse. She had a massive crisis of mousse. Now, this did happen after she followed a great bake-off tradition of listening to her bake. She had her ear down and listening to the bake. She's trying to get on the tour.
She's like, look, if I don't make it to the final, I can at least be on the fucking tour.
But the thing was that unlike previous years of people listening to bakes, with Noel Fielding in there...
It was a sweary canary bake, obviously.
The cake was talking back.
Yeah.
And it was talking to Noel about his mum.
It's like into yo mama jokes.
You don't say that about my mum. No, don't use that language.
You don't even know my mother.
It was good. So Kim Joy starts to try to make the mousse and then says, I've never actually made a mousse. I don't know how to do it. And then just suddenly stopped.
Aww.
And burst into tears and went, I'm going home. That's it. I'm going home. And just stopped. And Noel comes over, and what I really liked, this bit here, this little run of what happened here, Noel did an amazing job at taking the heat out of a situation but not being deadly serious.
Yeah.
Like, he came over there and sort of comforted her by making a few little jokes about, you're not going to mousse? Really? You're like a mousse? Of all things, a mousse? And, like, joked around with her a little bit. Everyone else put their cake in the oven and she tried the mousse again.
Yeah.
At this point, Rahul was trying...
Came out as a small squirrel.
He did. Rahul was trying desperately to...
Nothing up my sleeve.
Presto! Rahul was trying desperately at this time to make the mirror glaze, and it wasn't working, and he was getting upset. Again, you could see he was going to burst into tears. And that was when Noel turned around and said, no, Rahul, don't cry. Please don't cry. He goes, I think you're going to cry. No, I'm not going to cry. He goes, I'll cry for you. And so Noel starts emoting and crying. And Rahul's like, don't cry. Please don't cry. Please don't cry over the chocolate. Please don't cry over the chocolate. And it was great because Noel managed to take that stress away.
Just diffuse the situation.
And did it beautifully. And, like, sort of got a half laugh out of Rahul before Rahul went back to what he was doing. So we did a really good job of getting it under control. Now everyone else pulled their cakes out and poured the mirror glaze over the top to set it. Kim Joy looks at it and goes, I might be able to mousse this. They go, you've got 1 minute left, and she's just finishing a layer of mousse and just pours the mirror glaze over and goes, that'll have to do. And it ended up with a marble texture. It looked like a marble cake is what it looked like.
But it had a shiny mirror glaze.
It was completely covered, as opposed to Rahul's, which wasn't.
The layers were nice.
Well, there was no real mousse. Because the problem was, the mousse was really runny. And so it sunk into the cake. So the cake absorbed the mousse layer, so there was no mousse layer in between. And, of course, it didn't get to chill. So...
I know, no Netflix, no chill.
No mousse cake and chill.
This cake was...
Bavarois and chill.
Completely bereft of chill.
No chill whatsoever.
Oh my God, this cake has no chill
Totes no
whatsoever.
Chill. Totes no chill.
Oh, what did Bridie say today? She said, oh, it's totes something.
She did. I can't remember what it was.
She went all Valley Girl.
So the judging. Brian here, they said the shine was there, but it was a very dark shine. The layers were even.
How very goth.
Yes, it's very goth of you. The layers were even, and then they said that the chocolate was very incontinence pant because it was so thick that you could pick it up and, like, peel it. And it didn't break.
That implies that, like, Paul's looking at the layers of an incontinence pad. Because they're usually just, like, fluffy.
He was with Mary Berry for a number of years.
Probably helping her out.
And Mary probably got a bit boozy after shoots, and they'd rather than have her run off to the bathroom every 2.5 seconds.
Hand me a tenner.
Yeah, just give her a tenner, lady, and off she goes. Ruby...
Poise with confidence.
Ruby, we didn't mention much during this challenge because everything was right. It was an even mirror glaze. There were even layers. It tasted really good. Kim Joy, they said that it looked neat, but it wasn't set. They did say that the mousse blended with the top layer, but they also said that the flavours were still really good. And like you can see Kim Joy going, what? Hang on a minute, that's not right. Rahul, it looked rushed. It had a rubbery mirror glaze, and they said it wasn't really that edible because it was just lots of rubber.
Yep.
So, unsurprisingly, Rahul was fourth in that.
Do you think both he and Bryony, after Kim Joy's bunnies were reproducing everywhere, they decided to make prophylactic tops for the cakes to keep them protected?
That's got to be it. The rubber was there to stop any further bunnies
from impregnating
In fact, what they were doing was a service.
Yeah.
We salute you. All right, so Bryony was third, Kim Joy was second, amazingly enough, and no one was more surprised than Kim Joy going, I don't know how I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And first place, obviously, by a long distance, was Ruby. So that gets us to the showstopper.
Yeah.
Now, what a showstopper.
Now, at this point, Bryony is in trouble.
Bryony, they said it was on the end of being in trouble, but she was still in, the middle bit.
Yeah.
Rahul was in deep.
Yep.
The comment was that Rahul was in deep trouble. Kim Joy could go either way, but seemed to be able to do okay. Ruby had a really bad first bake, but a really good second bake. Mm-hmm. They said Rahul had an okay first bake, but a really bad technical.
Yeah.
So the showstopper, 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You had to make Parisian patisserie window containing 36 patisserie, 3 different types. Choux was the first one they had to make. You had to do a puff pastry mille-feuille, and you had to do a patisserie.
Yes, now the patisserie. Chris and I have been watching this awesome show on Netflix called Losers.
It's brilliant.
Now, episode 4 is called Stone Cold, and it's about the Briar curling.
Curling Cup. 1985 Briar Cup.
And it is fucking glorious. It is waiting for a treatment. It needs Andy Samberg to play Pat Ryan. But I do think that Pat Suri...
Sounds like a teammate of Pat Ryan.
Yes, it does.
Well, again, because later on when Pat Ryan comes back, and again, go watch it, he comes back with a team called the Ryan Express, but I like the idea that the scene before that was called Pat Attack.
Just him and Pat Suri.
Him and Pat Suri, just those two, just driving the stones at people. So I'll quickly run through what everyone made, just so we can get through what they made. Mm-hmm. So Bryony had lemon drizzle eclairs, she had coffee and walnut mille-feuille, and she had black forest tartlets. Kim Joy had lemon and blueberry mille-feuille. She had orange, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, was regular, that's right.
Is it mille-feuille or mille-feuille?
Mille-feuille. And mango and passion fruit meringue tartlets. Rahul made lemon and blueberry mille-feuille, caramel eclair, and a classic fruit tartlet, although it wasn't that classic. Ask Paul Hollywood.
There's no glaze!
Where's your glaze? Well, that'd be fair. Every fruit tartlet
You're into a glaze rage.
Every fruit tartlet I've ever seen is glazed.
Yeah.
And Ruby went with the summer mille-feuille, the chocolate and hazelnut Saint Henri, and the lemon verbena tartlets. Fucking lemon verbena. Fucking lemon verbena. Such a strong flavour. All right. So Paul Hollywood said something at the start of this challenge which concerned me.
Yeah.
I'll be judging this as a professional baker. What the fuck have you been doing for the previous 8 weeks, Paul?
Yeah, just judging it as a butcher.
Yeah, look, I started off doing candles, and I judged the first week as the candlestick maker.
Yes.
Weeks 2 to 8 was the butcher. This week, finally, it's the baker. I wondered why he was saying that cake was in a different cut in week 3. That's why.
There butcher. We go, butcher.
All right.
He's like, I think you'll find this is a strip loin.
Where's the chop?
Have you made some cutlets? I want 12 perfect cutlets.
12 cutlets of equal size with the right level of trimmed fat. Shout out to my mother, daughter of a butcher. So it's rough puff time. Mm-hmm. Except for Bryony. And this is where Bryony made A bake-off fateful decision.
Now, Bryony's whole things, like her whole showstopper came down to it's either going to be amazing or fail gloriously because she, dough mold and mousse setting inside it. Going for the fucking lemonated pastry as opposed to a rough puff.
It was, again, it's the thing with what Bryony was going for was if she nailed it,
yep,
she
true.
was star baker and she was guaranteed a spot in the final.
Yeah.
If it failed, she was dead.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that she looked at everyone else around and went, well, Ruby's having a good week. And Kim Joy, if she didn't go down with that cake, she's probably okay.
Yeah.
So it's myself and Rahul.
Yeah.
And I know that Rahul does know, even though he's wobbling a lot, he knows his bakes.
Now, I put it down to their research. So, obviously, Bryony's gone to Instagram. She's looking at all the what's going on in Paris, what's trendy, what's fashionable. Rahul, on the other hand...
What a choice so we were doing Parisian shop windows. And
he's gone down
you know
the
where he's
local
gone?
high street.
You know where he's gone?
Where?
He's gone Sheffield, lad.
He's gone Sheffield.
He's gone down there and got some Sheffield steels, what he's done.
And seen some patisserie in the high street.
I can't believe...
What the fuck is this accent? Even I'm confused. It's like Welsh.
It started as Sheffield. It has merged into Welsh.
I'm being, taken over by John.
No, not John.
Do you know John's from Wales?
No. Really?
He's from Wales.
Really? So... He took inspiration for a French patisserie challenge from Sheffield.
Yep.
I am thoroughly baffled.
#inspo.
What I am disappointed with...
Yeah.
What I am disappointed with, though, is what we missed out on. So he took his inspiration from Sheffield. Sheffield, of course, famous for coal mining. Now, he really missed an opportunity to make choux pastry slag mountain. So we could have had a croquembouche. We could have had a slag mountain croquembouche.
And he could have dyed the choux pastry with some of the charcoal, the edible charcoal stuff.
If he'd been really clever, all three bakes could have been a working mine. He could have had his tartlets as the buckets carrying the choux up and down. Right, that would have been brilliant, and the mille-feuille could have been like the conveyor belt, and he could have had
the mille-feuille could have been the what's it called, the lift that takes the miners down.
Yes,
little miners' helmets on.
Why did you not make a working Sheffield coal mine?
Served it on stainless steel. It's a fucking girder.
Sheffield steel. Brass band in the background.
Anti-Thatcher placards.
Thatcher out. Sorry, that just reminded me of one of my favourite Not the 9 o'clock news jokes.
Oh no.
Where they've got the footage of, they used to intercut footage from the show Not the 9 o'clock news, intercut footage of politicians and then do something stupid with it. So they had Margaret Thatcher walking around the number 10 Downing Street at the time, and the crowd's outside with the placards, Thatcher out, Thatcher out, Thatcher out, Thatcher out, and the door opens, she turns and waves to the crowd, and they cut back. So as she walks inside number 10, they cut back and it's Thatcher in, Thatcher in, Thatcher in. Anyway, at this point, after talking about Sheffield inspiration, Noel went over and said, how are you, Rahul? And Rahul's like, alive. To which Noel went, I'm not really sure, and grabbed him by the wrist and went, there's no pulse. Once again, I think Noel was actually being serious there, and I think it's fulfilling your belief the other week.
That he's a vampire?
That he's an alien.
Oh,
remember, he's come down to learn the ways of baking.
Yes.
That would also explain why his motivation for a French patisserie challenge
and
was Sheffield.
You know I'd forgotten? They Men in Blacked me. Just wiped it from my mind. Here we are again. It's going to happen again next week. Will I remember that Rahul's an alien? No, I won't.
I'm glad they keep dissing me, though.
Are you an alien as well? Maybe you're the Man in Black. Are you a Dirty John? I saw that on Netflix. Please don't try and kill my children.
I just wiped the mind around. Anyway, so...
What were we talking about?
We're talking about the baking. So,
baking.
So Paul came over and in a really creepy moment...
Why have I written Rahul as an alien on my arm?
I don't know. Anyway, we'll work that out later. Paul came over and in a very creepy moment took the spatula off Rahul's bench, snuck off to the side with Rahul watching him, put her finger up it and licked the spatula to test the quality of the creme pat.
He put a finger up the spatula, am I correct?
He did.
Okay, cool.
He ran it up the spatula.
That would have been some interesting television.
Anyway, he ran up the spatula and he tested the creme pat, looked at Rahul and walked off. And Rahul's looking at him like, I don't know what that was. I reckon that was about the 2.5 hour mark when Paul Hollywood started to crack up.
I think I've realised what the issue is.
What?
Paul's gone and got his tan done, and I think he's had some Botox as well, because his expressions are just not on. Like, he's probably coming across angrier. Like, instead of most people look surprised.
Are you sure he didn't have the dye injected instead? And it's not tanning. He had just tanning solution injected.
Melatonin or whatever it is.
It's just been injected into him. They ground up...
Melanin, that's it.
No, we're going with melatonin. No, what they did was they ground up terracotta paste and, like, just injected under the skin.
Just rolled him down some old Roman ruins, picking up terracotta.
No, he's a big Bob Ross fan.
Yeah.
And he's gone out and he's got the burnt sienna.
Burnt sienna.
And just having that injected under his skin. He's a happy little accident. He's a
squirrel peapod.
Let's look at peapod now. So Sandy then spoke in French. And now obviously...
Le crepes are on the bureau.
The keys are on the sideboard. The clefs are sur le bureau. The keys are on the sideboard. But obviously her French was inspired...
by my French.
By our goddess of the accents. The queen of accents, indeed. Of course, she said to the bakers they had a certain amount of time left, and of course what you taught her instead was...
my aunt's pen is in the
My
desk.
mother's pen is in the desk.
There we go.
That is...
I don't know why my memory's so weird at the moment.
It seems something's
why
happened.
don't I have written Chris is a man in black?
Don't worry about that. Work on that later.
Okay.
Hang on, let me just rub that off.
But you're wearing a Liverpool LFC shirt, like
yes,
LFC
I know. Anyway, look, it's colour. You're having colour problems. Anyway,
okay.
So Kim Joy,
yes,
decided to ask the age-old question: What's crack-a-lackin'?
For nuns, apparently.
I don't know why crackline's become a thing.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't add anything. I didn't think it added anything to her shoe buns.
I think if it was going to be... maybe she was trying to emulate the wafers. Like
possibly.
The communion wafers.
Possibly.
But, like, I know this was filmed, like, last year before the whole George Pell thing, but it's not really a good reference to have.
Not at the moment, it's not. Not for us.
Little nuns, just not so good with what's going on there in the Catholic Church.
Not exactly at the moment. Noel seemed to feel at this point that he's learned a lot about baking over the last couple of weeks.
He has.
I don't believe he's learned a thing.
But I loved his idea. He was just kind of like, one day I'm just going to bake all the things I've learned on Bake Off, then I'm going to eat them all, and then I'm going to keel over and sleep for 1,000 years. I'm like, I can see that happening.
But what I love with this was Noel was, I've learned so much in the last couple of weeks, and then a couple of minutes later, cut to Rahul asking him to go and get him a brush.
Pastry brush.
And he goes, I'll get that for you. And turns around and he goes, what's a pastry brush? And then in the end, Rahul's like, I don't think I'll bother.
Oh, no.
Now, Kim Joy was doing, one of the things she was baking was one of my favourite things I think I've seen, the orange creme diplomat.
They were the nuns.
I know, but the way
they had a few different names to them, because in the drawing they were called the diplomats.
Yep.
And then when the little
caption came up,
they were the religioso.
Yeah, the religioso, which was the one I couldn't pronounce before. Yeah. One I couldn't pronounce before. But it was, again, what she actually made was an orange creme diplomat. So I like the idea that there's an orange creme ambassador, orange creme foreign minister. In fact, there's a whole
from
orange
the planet
creme.
Terry's.
I wonder if Terry's their god.
Terry's their god. The Empress is Dawn French.
Dawn French is their official spokesperson as well.
Yes.
It's not Terry's. It's mine. So everyone else had their bake in the oven. Bryony still hadn't put hers in because her pastry wasn't done yet.
Oh, and this is where the wheels were just falling off.
Yeah.
And the editors did a good job telling this story because it was just nowhere for her to hide. And it was...
We had the two contrasting, though. We started off with they showed Ruby, and that was where Sandy went over and went, you look ahead of the game.
She's like, don't tell the game.
And then they got to Bryony, and her pastry came out of the oven, and it wasn't cooked.
No.
And Noel looked at it and goes, "Oh, you'll be okay. Can you put it back in?" And Bryony, just accepting her fate, looked at it and went, "Nah." And she wasn't upset about it. She just went, "Nah, it's done. It's done."
And
she kind of knew. Rahul looked at his, and we finished off the way we finished off the last couple of weeks, with him looking at his bench and going, "Everything's really bad.
The world's going to
really
explode."
bad." And they even pointed out tonight when they were talking about the bakers. I think Sandy mentioned it and went, "Well, Rahul has absolutely no confidence."
Yeah.
So
and Prue was, if anyone can, rise to the occasion, it is Bryony.
Well, they said that they thought that Bryony was probably the mentally the toughest, and I actually think you still saw that, even though she went home, because Bryony was mentally the toughest because she knew.
Yeah.
And rather than go into a big meltdown moment, she just sort of went, "No, okay, that's it, I'm done." So the judging, Kim Joy's were far too. Now this is a common complaint. Remember, they were supposed to be making things to fit in a small patisserie window.
Yes.
Not jumbo fucking cakes.
They were Sandy Togsvig windows, not
Fielding windows. But the size of some of the mille-feuille, for example, and tartlets in particular, especially when we get to Bryony's tartlets, they were fucking huge.
Yes. Particularly when you see Sandy trying to shove one of Rahul's in her face.
That was hilarious. So, Kim Joy, all too big and chunky. The mille-feuille was slightly under, but the flavour was really good. The pastry on the tart was good, but the meringue that was on top, it all broken up. She used the wrong meringue. There was a bit of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade about that tonight, because they were like, "You have chosen poorly." And then later on, when they were doing the judging on a couple of other ones, and they had the meringue on top of it, and they went, "You have chosen wisely." So the shoe was dark for Kim Joy, well filled though, and a nice flavour. And that was where Paul went on a rant about crackline and going, "I'm not a big fan of crackline. I don't see the point of it."
Wonder if someone's done it with pork crackling.
That's a weekend job. Ruby,
make the shoe, pork crackling on top, and some apple sauce in the middle.
That's done. I'm doing that now. Rubies were very pretty and well decorated, but they were said again too big. The puff pastry on the mille-feuille was really good, as was the flavour. The shoe was delicious. The tartlets looked good, but Paul was upset that the fruit wasn't glazed, and there was only a little bit of fruit on hers, but he still wanted that glazed. That is nothing compared to where we're going. And then she made lemon verbena on the other one, and we said the problem with lemon verbena always is it's really fucking strong, and sure enough, the lemon was really fucking strong. Bryony, the pastry on the tarts looked really thick, and look, even I could look there, and you looked at it and went, "That's really fucking thick." And it looked like, I don't know how big it was, maybe a baseball, possibly a little bit bigger, that dome in the middle.
It was less of a tart and more of a pie. It was bordering on something you'd serve to a family.
You know what I thought it was?
What?
Epcot.
Epcot.
It looked like Spaceship Earth.
It's a world of wonder.
It looked like Spaceship Earth in a tart case. So, and it was full of mousse.
Biodome.
Paulie Shaw's in there. Don't let him out. She had mousse, and then she had the jelly inside, but unfortunately when they cracked it open, the mousse just went everywhere. They needed those incontinence pads they made in the previous challenge. Wrong challenge, Bryony. They said that the flavours were good, but the case was also chewy, because the shoe was too big, and they said, "What's it filled with?" And she goes, "It's not. I didn't get that far."
You know why? They were clown shoes.
Oh,
because they were red.
They were red and long, and yeah, you're right. And then we had,
hey, Sideshow Luke Perry.
Moment.
Too soon.
Moment for Sideshow Luke Perry. Now, we also had a moment here where they tasted them and they went, "They're very salty." And then they had the mille-feuille. And they went, the pastry's raw. The creme pat's good. And then Prue goes,
a little salty.
It's a little salty again. Did you maybe? And she goes, "I think I might have mixed the salt and the sugar up." It's that kind of day.
Yes.
Then Rahul. Now, Paul had a look on his face like thunder.
Yeah.
And looked at the tartlets, then looked at Rahul and went, "They're not finished."
Glaze rage.
And he said, you cannot serve raw fruit like that.
No.
It should be glazed. And look, I get what he's saying. I've not had a fruit tartlet where the fruit's like all fresh on top and no glaze over the top of it. The flavour was good. And again, remember, it's for a window, so it might be sitting there a bit longer than like an hour or so. So the fruit's going to look a bit sad if you don't glaze it.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping all this fucking pressure that's being put on and the expectations are going to lead to a good grand final.
Should. So they said the flavour was good. The base was thick, however, on the tartlets. The eclair wasn't completely full, but the flavour was good, except Paul didn't like the flavour. Prue did.
No, he thought it was basic.
Basic. However,
Shoe basic.
while the millefeuille worried both Paul and Prue, they said it tasted fucking amazing.
Yes.
So that, by the way, before we just get to the end bit there, Rahul then said, for someone who didn't start baking until I was 29, and I'm like, what?
First cake at 29.
That's rapid. That's
Yeah, but
pretty
there's
fucking
like
rapid.
lots of famous comics that didn't start till in their 30s.
That's a bit different to baking and getting the techniques down.
In their 40s, yeah.
So
True.
it was quite obvious tonight.
Jesus, he didn't become the, like, fucking Lord our Saviour till he was 30.
Hey, but his carpentry skills were legendary. Also, so
Happy Lent, everyone.
So tonight you had a clear winner.
Who according... Okay, do you know what Lent is according to our friend Sam, Emma's husband?
What is it?
It's the 40 days when Jesus went on a bender.
It's fair enough. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Look, it's not long after his birthday. I mean, there's something coming up in April.
Yeah.
You know, go on a bender.
Go on a bender.
So it was a very easy choice for Star Baker.
Come my apostles, my apostles.
He says a posse. Yeah. That's when he becomes Jesus. So
His number one girl, Mary Maggs.
before we get way off track, the Star Baker, Ruby, it was pretty straightforward.
Absolutely.
And going home, Bryony,
Yeah.
it's fair. Look,
It is absolutely fair.
I still think that for the second week in a row, Rahul somehow managed to sidestep a bullet that was aimed directly at him.
Yeah.
But the mill fight at the end saved him.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I think it might have been a bit closer if that had been terrible.
absolutely. And, like, I've loved Bryony since day dot. Really enjoyed watching her in the tent.
We love Bryony. We're big Bryony fans.
And, you know, I'd say I'd miss her, but she's going to be back next week. And she won't be baking, but we'll see her again. And then it's the end of the season.
Then she doesn't have to worry about, anything, really.
No.
She can go and just turn up and talk about who she thinks will win. And they split them down with all three, and they tell everyone, you should vote for this one, you should vote for this one, you should vote for this one. I want someone to say John.
I'm sure it's just the bakers deciding amongst themselves who they'll say.
Probably. So,
We get to see John next week.
oh God, I hope he's in a Welsh flag.
Just draped.
Dressed like a dragon.
Just borrowed an old St. George dragon outfit from the
I
bank.
hope he has a Hawaiian shirt with dragons on it.
Oh, yes.
And tells everyone he's from Wales.
And a leek hat. And matching leek shoes.
That would be perfect.
Yes.
This is why they all perform Turandot in the main lawn.
Yes.
All right, so, and with that in mind...
And yes, Gabby, we did realise that we meant Aida, not Turandot, but you know.
No, we meant Turandot, but we then described Aida.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter. We meant Turandot. Turandot is a far funnier thing to say than Aida.
Look, you know, our interests in life don't range to knowing a lot about opera.
And I legitimately, as you heard on the podcast last week, I legitimately lost my shit, and I listened back to it midweek just to see how the episode was, and once again got to the section where you said the slip-in presents Turandot, and I had to pull the car over. It was that.
I'm really looking forward to the slip-in now presenting Turandot.
They better do it.
To like celebrate like Mary and Frederick's
Maybe we can arrange
30th anniversary or something.
Maybe we can arrange it as a special podcast event.
Yeah.
We get everyone to go down to the slip-in and we put on a performance of Turandot just in the beer garden.
Just us. We'll get some of the bakers in to do like, cameos.
Oh, that could be good. That could be good. So what I want you to do is I want you to go, everyone out there listening to this podcast.
First of all, tell us what the storyline is for Turandot.
Secondly, I want you to go and find a character in Turandot that you would like to play.
Yes.
And then the washing up players will present Turandot at the slip-in. We haven't asked to slip in yet, but I'm sure they'll be okay with it.
That'll be fine. We'll just do it on the path out the front.
We've talked about royalty.
Got a beer garden.
We've talked about royalty. So until the grand final, which is next week, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
We will catch you all then for the final episode.
Hump to hump.